Life rewards those who refuse to quit. Right now, as you sit here, you're making a choice that will shape your future. The choice to persist when others would fold. The choice to stand when others would fall. The choice to say, I will not give up when every fiber of your being wants to surrender. Success is not a lightning strike of good fortune. Success is the result of refusing to accept defeat. It's getting knocked down 7 times and standing up 8. It comes to those who continue long after the excitement of the moment has passed, who push forward when motivation fades and only commitment remains. I've spent over 4 decades studying the most successful people from around the world. I've interviewed thousands of top performers across industries, analyzed their habits, their mindsets, and their strategies, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, the single most important factor separating the extraordinary from the ordinary is persistence, the willingness to never, ever give up. Let me tell you a story about my own journey. Years ago, I was broke, confused, and working labor jobs just to make ends meet. I had no college education, no special talents, no connections, and no clear path forward. I was sleeping in my car at one point, washing in gas stations with nothing but determination to fuel me. Each day, I would send out job applications, study sales techniques from library books, and practice my communication skills. I was rejected hundreds of times. Potential employers would look at my lack of formal education and show me the door. Sales prospects would hang up on me mid-sentence. Friends and family suggested I lower my expectations and be realistic. I made a promise to myself. I would not give up. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. I kept knocking on doors. I kept making calls. I kept learning, adjusting, and improving. Eventually, I got a small break in sales. That small break turned into consistent performance. That consistent performance led to management opportunities. Those management opportunities blossomed into consulting and speaking engagements. The turning point wasn't a miracle. It was the day I decided that temporary failure would not define my permanent reality. It was the day I committed to persistence as a way of life. Why do so many people give up before they achieve success? This question has fascinated me throughout my career. I've identified several key reasons that cause people to surrender their dreams prematurely. First, most people dramatically underestimate the time it will take to achieve significant success. They believe in overnight success stories. They see in media not realizing those overnight successes typically involve 10, 15, or 20 years of hard work behind the scenes. When success doesn't come quickly, they assume something is wrong with their goal or their abilities. Second, people often misjudge the challenges they'll face. They expect the path to be relatively straightforward, with occasional obstacles. In reality, the path to achievement is filled with unexpected detours, roadblocks, and complete dead ends that require you to backtrack and start again. When faced with these surprises, unprepared individuals become discouraged and quit. Third, many people lack a burning desire that sustains them through difficult times. They have wishes, not commitments. Wishes fade when circumstances become tough. Commitments endure through any hardship. Fourth, most people have no organized plan for dealing with setbacks. When obstacles arise, they're forced to react emotionally rather than respond strategically. This emotional reaction often leads to abandoning goals at the first sign of trouble. Fifth, many individuals surround themselves with negative people who reinforce doubts and fears. These people, often out of misguided concern, encourage giving up at the first hint of difficulty. Finally, most people never realize how close they are to success when they quit. As the saying goes, many people give up just a few feet from gold. They do 90 of the work, but surrender before completing the final 10 that would bring breakthrough results. Understanding the psychology of persistence is essential to developing this quality in yourself. Your brain is designed to conserve energy and avoid pain. It's a survival mechanism that served our ancestors well, but can work against us in modern life. When you face resistance, your brain automatically looks for ways to escape discomfort. It manufactures excuses, rationalizations, and reasons to give up. It magnifies problems and minimizes opportunities. It reminds you of failures while downplaying successes. This isn't because your brain is working against you. It's simply following ancient programming to keep you safe. The key psychological shift that persistent people make is recognizing this pattern and overriding it with conscious choice. They develop what psychologists call metacognition, the ability to observe their own thinking processes. When negative thoughts arise, they don't identify with those thoughts. Instead, they say, "That's just my brain trying to protect me from discomfort. I choose to continue anyway." Another critical psychological factor is your identity, who you believe yourself to be. If you identify as someone who gives up when things get tough, you'll naturally fulfill that identity. However, if you consciously build an identity as someone who persists no matter what, your actions will naturally align with that self-image. This identity-based persistence is far more powerful than willpower alone. Willpower fluctuates with energy levels, mood, and circumstances. Identity remains constant. When persistence becomes part of who you are rather than something you do, continuing through challenges becomes automatic. Your beliefs about challenges also significantly impact your persistence. People who give up tend to see problems as permanent obstacles. Those who persist view problems as temporary conditions to be solved or endured. This perspective shift from "this is impossible" to "this is challenging, but solvable" is essential for long-term persistence. Another psychological element is your explanatory style, how you explain events to yourself. People who give up quickly often have a pessimistic explanatory style. When something goes wrong, they see it as personal. It's all my fault. Permanent things will always be this way. And pervasive, this ruins everything. Persistent individuals have an optimistic explanatory style. They see setbacks as specific rather than universal, temporary rather than permanent, and situational rather than personal. This perspective allows them to maintain hope and continue moving forward despite difficulties. Let me share with you 7 principles of never giving up that I've observed in highly successful people across all fields. Clarity of purpose. You cannot persist toward a goal that isn't crystal clear in your mind. Vague aspirations produce half-hearted efforts. The most persistent people have defined their goals with such precision that they can see, feel, and touch them in their minds years before physical reality catches up. Take time today to clarify exactly what you want. Write it down with specific details. Create a clear mental picture of your goal achieved. This clarity becomes an anchor that holds you steady when storms of doubt and difficulty arise. The growth mindset. Persistent individuals believe that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. They see failures not as evidence of unintelligence, but as opportunities for growth. When they hit obstacles, they don't question their ability to eventually succeed. They question their current strategy and look for ways to improve. Develop this mindset by consciously reframing challenges. Instead of thinking, "I can't do this," ask yourself, "How can I do this?" Instead of saying, "This isn't working," ask, "What can I learn from this that will help me succeed next time?" Emotional management. Persistence requires managing your emotional state. Successful people experience the same negative emotions as everyone else: fear, frustration, disappointment, doubt. The difference is they don't let these emotions control their actions. Practice emotional management by acknowledging feelings without being ruled by them. When negative emotions arise, name them specific. "I'm feeling frustrated because this is taking longer than I expected." Then consciously choose your response. "I choose to continue despite this frustration because my goal matters more than temporary discomfort." Daily action. Persistence isn't dramatic. It's taking small actions consistently, regardless of mood or circumstances. The most successful people in the world maintain daily routines that move them toward their goals, even when progress seems imperceptible. Establish minimum daily actions that you commit to complete no matter what. These actions might be small, but their cumulative effect over time becomes unstoppable. Remember, it's better to take small steps consistently than to take occasional giant leaps followed by periods of inaction. Strategic flexibility. True persistence isn't stubbornly repeating failed approaches. It's maintaining your goal while being flexible about your methods. When one approach doesn't work, persistent people try another and another until they find what works. Develop strategic flexibility by regularly reviewing your progress and methods. Ask yourself, is my current approach moving me toward my goal? If not, what adjustments can I make? Be willing to take new roads to your destination. Principle: support systems. No one persists in isolation. Behind every seemingly solo success story is a network of supporters who provided encouragement, feedback, resources, or accountability. Persistent people actively build and maintain these support systems. Create your own persistence network by connecting with people who believe in you and your goals. Share your journey with them. Ask for specific help when needed. Offer support to others on similar paths. Together, you'll accomplish far more than any of you could alone. Purpose beyond self. The most powerful fuel for persistence is meaning that transcends personal gain. When your goals connect to something larger than yourself, service to others, contribution to a cause, creation of a legacy, you tap into a wellspring of motivation that can sustain you through any challenge. Find the deeper purpose in your goals. How will achieving them allow you to contribute to others? What positive difference will your success make in the world? Connect with this purpose daily to renew your commitment to persist. Now let's talk about practical strategies for developing resilience and persistence in your daily life. Start by building your persistence muscles through progressive training. Just as you wouldn't walk into a gym and try to lift the heaviest weights on your first day, don't test your persistence with your biggest challenges immediately. Begin with smaller commitments that stretch you slightly beyond your comfort zone, then consistently fulfill those commitments. For example, commit to 5 minutes of exercise daily for 2 weeks. Once you've proven to yourself that you can maintain this small commitment, gradually increase the duration or intensity. These small wins build your confidence in your ability to persist. Next, practice what I call success mapping. Break down any significant goal into smaller milestones, then break those milestones into specific, actionable steps. This creates a roadmap that makes the journey manageable and allows you to experience multiple small successes along the way, rather than waiting for one big achievement at the end. For each milestone, identify potential obstacles and create contingency plans. Ask yourself, what might prevent me from achieving this step? What will I do if that happens? This proactive planning prevents you from being blindsided by challenges and gives you ready responses when difficulties arise. Another powerful strategy is to use implementation intentions, specific plans for when, where, and how you'll take action. Research shows that people who create implementation intentions are significantly more likely to follow through than those who merely set goals. Instead of saying, I'll work on my business plan this week, say, I will work on my business plan at my desk from 7:30 to a.m. on Tuesday and Thursday. This specificity eliminates decision fatigue and makes action automatic. Develop a personal resilience ritual to help you recover from setbacks. This might include writing in a journal about what happened and what you learned. Reviewing past successes to remind yourself of your capabilities. Physical activity to release stress and generate positive energy. Connecting with supportive people who encourage your persistence. Conscious relaxation through meditation, deep breathing, or time in nature. Having this ritual ready before you need it ensures you'll have a constructive response to setbacks, rather than giving in to discouragement. Monitor your self-talk rigorously. The words you say to yourself shape your reality. Replace phrases like, I can't with I haven't yet. Replace this is too hard with this requires learning and growth. Replace I want to give up with I choose to continue because this matters to me. Create visual reminders of your commitment to persist. This might be a vision board with images representing your goals, a progress tracker on your wall, or a simple note with a key phrase that inspires you. Place these reminders where you'll see them during moments when persistence becomes challenging. Practice discomfort deliberately. Take cold showers occasionally. Fast for a day if medically appropriate for you. Work out slightly longer than feels comfortable. These practices build your tolerance for discomfort and teach you that you can continue despite unpleasant feelings. Finally, celebrate persistence itself, not just outcomes. When you continue despite challenges, acknowledge and reward that choice. This reinforces the behavior and makes it more likely you'll persist in the future. Or look at Thomas Edison, who reportedly failed over 10,000 times while inventing the electric light bulb. When asked about these failures, Edison famously said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. This perspective allowed him to persist where others would have surrendered. Each failure provided valuable data that brought him closer to eventual success. J.K. Rowling wrote the first Harry Potter book as a single mother living on welfare. Her manuscript was rejected by 12 publishing houses before a small London publisher gave her a chance. Now, Harry Potter is one of the best-selling book series in history, and Rowling has become one of the world's wealthiest women. Her persistence through poverty and rejection created a literary phenomenon that has touched millions of lives. Colonel Sanders was 65 years old when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken. His only assets were a chicken recipe and a Social Security check. He traveled across America, sleeping in his car, cooking his chicken for restaurant owners. He was rejected 1009 times before someone finally said yes. His persistence built a global fast food chain that made him a multimillionaire in his senior years. Consider Elon Musk, who nearly went bankrupt in 2008 when both Tesla and SpaceX were failing simultaneously. He invested his last dollars to keep these companies alive working 100-hour weeks, sleeping on friends' couches. His persistence through this period of extreme stress eventually led to revolutionary advances in electric vehicles and space travel. Or look at Oprah Winfrey, who was fired from her job as a television reporter because she was unfit for TV. She faced poverty, abuse, and discrimination before becoming one of the most influential media executives in history. Her persistence through these challenges created opportunities not just for herself, but for countless others whose stories she has helped tell. These stories reveal a common pattern. Success rarely comes quickly or easily to anyone. Behind every overnight success is usually a long period of persistent effort with little or no recognition. What separates these individuals from countless others with similar talents or ideas is simply their refusal to give up. Now let's address how to overcome the inevitable setbacks and failures you'll face on your journey. Because make no mistake, if you're pursuing anything worthwhile, you will experience failures. The question isn't whether you'll fail, but how you'll respond when you do. First, separate failure events from your identity. When you experience a setback, be careful with your language. Don't say, I am a failure. Say, this specific attempt didn't succeed. This distinction may seem semantic, but it profoundly affects your ability to continue. A failure event is temporary. A failure identity feels permanent. What worked, learning from each setback. Ask yourself, what worked even a little bit? What didn't work at all? What will I do differently next time? Document these insights so they become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Third, practice immediate recovery. The speed with which you recover from failures is often more important than the failures themselves. Develop a 24-hour rule. Allow yourself to feel disappointed for no more than 24 hours, then refocus on moving forward. This prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent stoppages. Fourth, reframe failures as necessary steps toward success. In any significant endeavor, failure is not just possible but required. It provides essential feedback that guides you toward eventual success. As IBM founder Thomas Watson said, if you want to succeed, double your failure rate. Fifth, use visualization to maintain perspective during difficult times. Mentally rehearse potential setbacks before they occur and imagine yourself responding with resilience and determination. This mental preparation prevents you from being psychologically devastated when real challenges arise. Remember that failure and persistence exist in a paradoxical relationship. The more willing you are to fail, the more likely you are to persist. When you're not afraid of failure, when you see it as valuable information rather than final judgment, you actually continue where others would quit. Your life is the sum total of what you've been willing to persist through when others would have given up. Right now, in this moment, you face a choice that few people ever consciously make. The choice to become unstoppable. Unstoppable doesn't mean you won't face obstacles. It means obstacles can't stop you. Unstoppable doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you'll act despite your fear. Unstoppable doesn't mean you won't experience failures. It means failures become fuel for your eventual success. The quality of your life will be determined by the moments when persistence seems hardest, when logic suggests quitting, when emotions demand surrender, when others counsel compromise. The thing those moments, remember, worthwhile in human history was created by people who continued when they had every reason to stop. You have greatness within you. You have abilities and talents waiting to be expressed. You have dreams worthy of your persistence. And you have the capacity right now to decide that you will never give up on what matters most. Make that decision. Commit to it completely. Then watch as persistence transforms not just your results, but your character. Because in the end, the greatest reward of never giving up isn't just what you achieve, it's who you become in the process. The greatest power you possess is the power to continue. When you harness this power, you tap into something that transcends talent, education, connections, or luck. I've seen individuals with modest abilities achieve extraordinary results through sheer persistence, while others with remarkable talents accomplish little because they surrender too quickly. What separates these two groups isn't what they know, who they know, or what advantages they started with. The difference lies in their response to the inevitable challenges of life. One group sees obstacles as signals to stop. The other sees those same obstacles as opportunities to grow stronger. Let me share with you 5 persistence patterns I've observed in top performers across industries. These patterns aren't just behaviors, they're ways of thinking that you can adopt starting today. The first pattern is what I call incremental focus. Most people who give up do so because they're overwhelmed by the gap between where they are and where they want to be. Top performers narrow their focus to the next small step. They don't worry about climbing the entire mountain. They focus on placing the next foot correctly. This narrow focus makes progress manageable and prevents the paralysis that comes from looking too far ahead. Practice incremental focus by asking yourself each morning, what's the one thing I can do today that moves me toward my goal? Complete that one thing before worrying about anything else. This approach builds momentum that carries you through moments of doubt. The second pattern is process orientation. Average performers focus primarily on outcomes, while persistent individuals focus on processes. When you fixate solely on results, you become vulnerable to discouragement when those results don't materialize quickly. When you focus on consistently executing effective processes, you remain motivated regardless of short-term outcomes. Develop process orientation by creating daily and weekly routines that align with your goals. Measure your success not by whether you've achieved your ultimate aim, but by whether you've faithfully executed your process. Trust that results will follow naturally from process mastery. The third pattern is constructive interpretation. We all experience setbacks, but persistent people interpret these events in ways that support continued action. When faced with a rejection, failure, or obstacle, they immediately ask, how can I use this to become better? What does this teach me that I needed to learn? Practice constructive interpretation by developing reflexive questions that you ask whenever you face difficulty. Instead of, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of, this proves I can't succeed, ask, how must I grow to overcome this challenge? The fourth pattern is productive impatience. Most people who achieve remarkable things share a curious combination of patience about results and impatience about actions. They're willing to wait years for significant achievements, but they're unwilling to postpone today's necessary actions for even a day. Cultivate productive impatience by becoming relentless about daily execution, while remaining patient about outcomes. Never delay an action that can be taken now, but never expect overnight results from today's efforts. The fifth pattern is strategic rest. Counterintuitively, the most persistent people are also the most disciplined about renewal. They understand that persistence isn't about nonstop action. It's about sustainable advancement toward important goals. They build deliberate recovery periods into their schedules, allowing them to maintain high energy over the long term. Incorporate strategic rest by planning recovery periods with the same seriousness you plan work periods. Remember that rest isn't a reward for hard work. It's a prerequisite for sustained persistence. As you develop these patterns, you'll find that persistence becomes less about forcing yourself forward and more about removing the internal barriers that hold you back. One of the most common internal barriers is what psychologists call learned helplessness, the belief that our actions don't influence outcomes. This mindset develops when we experience repeated failures without understanding the connection between our efforts and results. We come to believe that nothing we do matters, so we stop trying. Combat learned helplessness by creating clear connections between specific actions and observable progress. Break down goals into such small steps that success becomes virtually guaranteed with sufficient effort. Each small success rebuilds your belief in your ability to influence outcomes. Another barrier is comparison thinking. In today's hyper-connected world, we're constantly exposed to others' highlight reels. We see their successes without witnessing the struggles behind those achievements. This creates unrealistic expectations about how quickly and easily we should succeed. Overcome comparison thinking by competing only with yourself. Measure your progress against your previous performance, not against others' public successes. Remember that everyone's path is different, and the only timeline that matters is your own. Fear of rejection represents another significant barrier. Many people abandon worthwhile pursuits not because they lack ability, but because they can't bear the thought of others judging them negatively. They protect their ego by quitting before they can fail publicly. Address rejection fear by seeking small, controlled exposure to judgment and criticism. Submit your work for feedback regularly. Make proposals knowing they might be declined. Apply for opportunities despite the possibility of rejection. Each time you survive being told no, your resilience grows. The psychology of persistence also involves understanding the role of momentum. Starting is always harder than continuing. Once you're in motion, psychological forces like consistency bias and sunk cost actually work in your favor, making it easier to continue than to stop. Create momentum by lowering the threshold for starting. Don't wait for perfect conditions or complete clarity. Begin with a version so small it seems trivial. Write one paragraph instead of waiting until you can write a chapter. Make one sales call instead of postponing till you can make 20. This tiny action creates movement that naturally builds upon itself. Another critical aspect of persistence is identity-based commitment. When you commit to a goal as something you do, motivation will fluctuate. When you commit to it as someone you are, action becomes automatic. A person who exercises only when motivated will stop frequently. A person who sees themselves as someone who never misses a workout will continue regardless of motivation. Develop identity-based commitment by making explicit declarations about who you are, not just what you'll do. Instead of saying, I'll try to write daily, say, I am a writer, and writers write every day. This subtle shift from aspiration to identity creates an internal consistency that drives persistent action. Understand also that persistence requires managing your physical state. Your body's condition dramatically affects your ability to persist through challenges. Fatigue, poor nutrition, dehydration, and lack of physical movement all undermine your psychological resilience. Support your persistence physically by prioritizing sleep quality, maintaining steady energy through proper nutrition, staying hydrated, and incorporating regular movement throughout your day. These physical practices create the biological foundation for psychological persistence. Finally, recognize that persistence is ultimately about aligning with your deepest values. When your actions reflect what matters most to you, continuing despite difficulty becomes natural rather than forced. You persist not because you're disciplined, but because you're devoted to something that transcends momentary comfort. Clarify your core values through regular reflection. Ask yourself what principles you want your life to stand for, independent of specific outcomes. When difficulty arises, reconnect with these values. Ask, what would a person who truly holds these values do in this situation? Then take that action, regardless of how you feel in the moment. The path of persistence isn't easy, but it's simple. Decide what matters, start moving toward it, and refuse to stop until you arrive. Everything else is just details.